So when you're working in this many new players in the position group, just how have you seen them gel as a group, and then maybe who's emerged kind of as a leader or kind of a voice to help these guys out?
A particular position or just?
No, the quarterback, sorry.
Well, Tanner's obviously the leader right now in the room. But there have been 3 guys, I think, that have shown some leadership ability. So that would be Tanner, Braden, and Marshall Howe. I think, and that's not a knock on the others. I think the others are in the, Cole is hurt, so he's kind of removed from the room a little bit, not getting reps on the field, not practicing. Miles and Nick are learning the offense still, and I think that's the mode they're in. It's hard to go lead when you don't have everything down. And then I think Marshall, Braden, and Nick have shown maybe the best understanding of the system. And usually when you kind of know your own job, it's easier to branch out. It's hard to go lead when you're focused on your own job. These 3 are probably in a better situation right now from an understanding standpoint than they were when they got here, obviously. And so you're starting to see some leadership ability from those 3, maybe more than the other 3.
Kind of building off that, you talked.
Coach, before we start, would you mind taking one more step?
I'm sorry. Sure. That good?
Yeah, that's good.
Kind of following up on that, when we talked to you before spring practice started, you talked about installing and that, your plan. How would you assess how the guys, especially the returning guys, who this is a completely different system for them, are grasping it and functioning in it right now? I know it's a long way to the opener, but.
So the new guys are, like Marshall and Miles, they have a very good understanding of the offense.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean just the quarterbacks. I meant the entire offense.
Oh, you meant everybody. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I would say overall, and what I was going to say about Marshall and Miles with the returning players is the same at all the positions. The attitude, the care factor, I say all the time, the excitement about running a different system, that's helped the learning curve.
Yeah.
Right? Because they were in during phase 1, Coach Fickle's phase 1 of developing their bodies in training and spending their time with Brady Collins. They were itching to get into meetings and talk football. And Coach kind of held them back, kept them hungry, and really wanted them to focus on the developmental part of it. And I won't lie, it was a challenge for me too, because I wanted to get into the building and get into the meetings and start teaching them this stuff also. The good thing for me, which was a little tougher for the rest of the staff, is that there was an exception for the quarterbacks for obvious reasons.
Yes.
So I had an opportunity to meet with my guys a little bit sooner than some of the other positional coaches. But overall, just the exuberance and the excitement and the work ethic that they already had, and the intelligence that they already had, that stuff just kind of played a positive part in this whole process. And so we were able to install the offense in the first 4 days like we wanted to. But looking back at where we were in Texas, where we were at Ole Miss, and where we were at North Carolina, we are ahead of the curve right now. Each job has gotten a little bit better. Maybe we're just getting better at installing it or teaching it. But a lot of that has to do with the care factor and the intelligence in the locker room.
You mentioned Tanner as a leader. What was an example that maybe stuck out to you, or something that he's done since he's been here that's kind of shown to you the type of leader he is?
So it's funny, we were just talking about him in the office this morning. I thought he was a hard guy to read when I was recruiting him, because he's composed, but he's quiet until you get to know him. And it took me a while to get to know him during recruiting. And then in this process, when we kind of rekindled the relationship a little bit and got into this process and he showed up here, he still was a little more conservative and composed and quiet until, you spend some time with each other, you get to know each other, and then things just flourished, I think, after a few weeks of just getting to know each other. But the other thing was, from day 1 that Tanner's been here, he's acted like the starter. He's shown up. There's no ego. He's very humble, and there's no disrespect towards the other guys. But he's been a starter for 2 years. He's a veteran. He carries himself that way, and he just has shown some natural leadership ability when he's out among our players, his teammates, and I think it just comes from the fact that he's already done it.
What about on the field with Tanner? What's the skill set you've seen now that you've had a chance to work with him for 8 practices? What is he doing so well to allow him to thrive?
So Tanner has a strong enough arm to make every throw on the field. He can snap off all the quick ones. We call them automatics. We really expect there to be 100% completion with regards to our accuracy on the quick screens and now throws, the quick game, the slants, the hitches, all that stuff. And he's pretty automatic at that stuff. The intermediate stuff takes a little bit more focus, obviously, and you're going to do that under more duress because we're holding the football. And he's really good there, and he can really fit some things into some tight windows. And I think he's going to be a really, really good deep ball guy. We talked about that this morning. He has the ability to hit the option stuff and the corners and the posts and the fades and all that stuff. And he's getting better as we go. I think he's much more athletic than people give him credit for. You know, he can run the football. He turned the corner on a scramble on a play last week that surprised even myself. And so I don't think that. I thought maybe with Drake May there'd be a little bit of a drop-off since he's such an athlete, and he's so good laterally. But Tanner's providing some of that same stuff, so I'm excited to see him in live action. He's got the leadership part of it. He's an athlete, and I think every day that we practice, he gets better executing the offense on the field. So things bode well for us, in my opinion, right now.
How specifically has he kind of shown that leadership? I imagine it's kind of difficult, even in this day and age, it might be difficult for a newcomer to immediately establish himself as a leader. How has he kind of done that?
Well, Tanner isn't exactly a yeller and a screamer, right? That's not his style. Very similar to Sam Howell. Sam Howell's quiet, but Tanner is going to bark at a guy if he needs something done. He's going to go over and coach him. It's something I try to facilitate. I want our guys, if they're not mentally getting a rep behind the cues, as you've seen me do that, if they're missing from one of those plays, it's usually because they're over talking to a tight end or a receiver or an O-lineman about correcting something. And they can't do that unless they have knowledge of the other positions. So I just think with knowledge comes power, with knowledge comes confidence, and they're able to talk to other players about the things that they're doing because they're aware of what the job is and they know how they're supposed to execute it. They also know what they want, right? We need a route to be a certain way, and if they're not getting a route the way it needs to get, then they can go over and have a conversation. Tanner doesn't pull any punches, and he has no problem addressing it with another team.
How have you gone about facilitating the quarterback competition this spring, just in general?
Well, on my board it says knowledge equals reps. And I've learned the hard way, that's just as a coach, putting the best athlete out there or the strongest arm out there slows the production of the offense, particularly when you're installing it for the first time. And really, those guys never really tap out or max out the potential that they have if they don't understand how to play the game of football. So I learned a long time ago, and the prerequisite now, we won't recruit them if they don't have the arm strength. We won't recruit them if they haven't demonstrated the accuracy. But once they get here, they're not getting on the field, they're not repping if they don't know the job. So there's, at Ole Miss we had a guy that was a super athletic with a great arm, could not learn the offense and really never got an opportunity early on to compete. And Jordan Ta'amu and Shea Patterson and Matt Corral were not that way, and they were able to compete and fight for a job. And so that is the prerequisite. I mean, they're not going to rep here if they don't know what they're doing. And so part of that is their obsessiveness to learning, right? We've got 3 guys in our room right now that are learning. We're talking about footwork of the O-line today in a power play with some of our quarterbacks because they've got their stuff down, and we're trying to expand their overall knowledge because it'll help them when they're out there. And then we've got 1 that's struggling, and we've got 2 that are still in the process of learning just their job and how to play quarterback.
With
You
Miles,
talk about building relationships with guys, and you can't force that, you can't rush it. So how do you do that? What are the keys to doing that?
I always say, I don't know after all this time coaching whether leaders are born or developed. It's probably a little bit of both. But what I do know is it happens naturally. There's a difference between when your child does something wrong and they go over and apologize to my wife because I told them to, and when they go over there and do it on their own. It's organic, it's natural, and it came from them. And that's how leadership is. I can tell a guy he needs to exude some leadership. I can tell him what he needs to do to present what looks like leadership, or he can do it naturally. And I don't push guys there. I tell them how important leadership is. It comes with the position. It's a necessary part of playing that position. If they don't have that ability, they're probably not going to be the starting quarterback here or most places. And if they have any of it, they've got to present it. They've got to show that they can do that. That's part of playing quarterback. So it has to happen naturally. It has to happen organically. And I think letting them know that that's a part of it is my job. Them demonstrating it is their job.
What stands out about Braden Locke and what he's been able to do to earn a lot of reps with the second team?
So Braden is maybe our most consistent guy. Struggled in the first couple practices, had a couple good days, in the middle there. The last 2 or 3 days he's been really good. He is the model of consistency, and he's gotten better with each practice. And he has he and Tanner probably have the best overall understanding of the offense and just the game of football in general. They're the most obsessed about it right now, so they put the most time in, and they retain well. So when you teach them something, Jim DK is a great example of that. You teach them something today, it shows up on the field tomorrow, and then you get to coach on the next step. Mike Brown gets to talk to him about the next step of receiver play, and you don't have to go back. And that's how Tanner and Braden are right now. They're both competing to be smarter than the other one.
With Miles, obviously his role is a lot clearer last year as kind of that next guy up. How have you seen him attack this spring when, after he puts in a year and all of a sudden he's kind of back at the bottom of the totem pole again, having to start from
So,
scratch?
he's not at the bottom. We'll rotate through our 3 reps. Nobody has really taken a stranglehold of that third spot. So our top guy right now is Tanner. The backup right now, and this could change, is Braden Locke. And then we've got 3 of them that are rolling through 3 reps. And a lot of the initial reps that they're assigned are based on their knowledge of what we're doing that day. And then after that, it's based on their production. And right now, the third guy on the depth chart for today would be Marshall Howe. Miles is still learning it. He has days where he's the 3 guy. And I'm just waiting to see one of the guys that is in that 3 spot on the practice day kind of take control and have a good, smooth decision-making and production day. And then you start putting those together, and those are the guys that wind up separating themselves from whoever's going to be 4 and whoever's going to be 5.
I mean, with him specifically, though, have you, liked his attitude and approach after?
Attitude's been great. He answers a lot of questions in the meetings. He studies. He comes in the meetings prepared. He's positive and productive and proud. I have no issues with Miles at all. He's done everything that we've asked him to do. Right now, he's just in the process of competing with the rest of the guys, and the pecking order is kind of dictated daily.
You talked about recruiting Tanner to Ole Miss. How close did you feel you came to having him join you there?
I think pretty close based on what he said. It's the hardest thing about recruiting. The funnest thing about recruiting is when you land an elite one. The hardest thing is when you're recruiting 2 or 3 elite ones and you can't coach those other 2 guys. And they go somewhere else, and you just hope they don't go somewhere in conference, so you have to coach against them. But, Braden Locke was a guy that I recruited, and Tanner Mordecai was a guy that I recruited, and we wound up committing somebody prior, and they wound up going elsewhere. Braden said he thought he was coming to North Carolina, and then we committed Drake May, and so he went to Mississippi State with Coach Leach. And that's the way it happens, but I'm glad that when you recruit fewer, you have a stronger relationship with them, and I think that helped us backtracking and looking into the portal for Evers and Tanner and Brady.
Where is Nick Evers in his development and trying to gain knowledge of the playbook and what you've seen so far?
So Nick is exciting athletically, and he might be the best athlete in the room. He's got a strong arm, and what he is working on right now, and we just met one-on-one yesterday, is getting to a point where he understands what's going on out there in the pass game from a protection standpoint. In the run game, when do we change some things or make a check or throw an RPO or pass, flip a now out there. Those type of things he's still on the learning curve with, and that's why he's had fewer reps. So the better he understands the system, the more we'll see him out there, and I'm looking forward to his learning and the way he addresses it will dictate him getting more reps. And that's really a synopsis of the conversation I had with him yesterday.
With Braden to Kid Yaconelli, I think a week or two ago, called him a genius, and just the way he's got a passion for in terms of learning the game. How have you seen how have you seen him take? Obviously, he has the experience from Mississippi State and the air raid scheme that Mike had there, but how have you seen him take to your style and really digest the playbook and what you ask?
So Braden's got a unique, advantageous background in that he came from the air raid system. So all the air raid stuff that we're doing here, it's just a natural, hey, here's what we call it, instead of what they were calling it there. But then in high school, he had a very substantial run RPO aspect to their offense. And that's probably what's a little different to Tanner. Tanner knows all the air raid stuff, and he has put more time and effort into learning how to execute the run game and the RPO stuff, because that wasn't as big a part of what he did. Braden can pull from these two different experiences. This offense is really made for him based on his background because it's what he's done. Tanner has learned it just as well. I think Braden came in with a little bit of an RPO knowledge advantage, and he's the same type of student of the game that Tanner is, and I think when they demonstrate that knowledge to the other players, where they can answer questions and talk to them about it, I think their teammates are impressed that they have knowledge beyond their own position.
Phil, when you guys got here,
One more for
you bolstered the wide receiver room, and you personally made it a point to say, look, we're still going to run the ball. We got backs who can run the ball. But from your tailback's perspective, do you guys have guys who can catch the ball and make plays in space, in your opinion?
Yeah, this sounds more convenient to say, but they all catch the ball well.
Okay.
I just met one-on-one with Jackson Aker about his ability to catch the football. I mean, he is an absolute load. Could probably play running back, fullback, tight end. I mean, he's kind of a hybrid kid. I think he can be fairly special, but the running backs have all given themselves a chance. We haven't eliminated a running back because when he's out there, we can't throw the ball to him. Yak and all those guys, Bortolotti and 44, I call Glauderman, I call him John Riggins. They don't know who John Riggins is. I call him Riggins. Yeah, but they all catch the ball well. And so we haven't really had to pull somebody so that we can throw the football.